The cathedral doors groaned open at exactly 2:14 p.m., the sound reverberating through St. Jude's like a death knell. Ethan Kwon stood in the entrance, every nerve in his body screaming that this was a trap. In his line of work, walking into enemy territory meant one thing: you better be ready to die. The organ swelled with the opening notes of the wedding march, and he forced himself to look toward the altar. That's when he saw her. Tammy, he breathed, the name catching in his throat like broken glass. She stood bathed in candlelight, wrapped in white lace that curved over a body he'd memorized in the dark. But something was wrong. Her hand rested on a swollen belly. 7 months, maybe more. The math detonated in his brain like a grenade. 6 months since he'd shattered her heart and walked away. 6 months since he'd convinced himself that leaving her was the only way to keep her alive. Time fractured. 6 months of silence. 6 months of burying himself in turf wars and bloodshed, of drowning guilt in expensive whiskey, of building an empire on the ruins of the only thing that had ever made him feel human. And now this, Tammy, pregnant and trembling, about to marry the man who wanted him dead. Stay or go, he muttered to himself, his tattooed knuckles white against the pew. You have 10 seconds to decide. But even as he calculated the exits, counted Dae-hyun's guards positioned throughout the church, his eyes caught the single tear sliding down Tammy's cheek. Not joy, not even sadness, terror. She wasn't a bride, she was a prisoner in a white dress, and the child she carried into the arms of his sworn enemy belonged to him. What neither of them understood, as the priest began to speak, as Dae-hyun smiled his predator's smile at the altar, as their daughter grew in a womb surrounded by lies and loaded guns, was that this unholy ceremony would force them to confront the brutal truth they'd both been running from, that love forged in jazz clubs and whispered promises, destroyed by his cowardice and resurrected by her sacrifice, had never died. It had only been waiting in the shadows for the moment when he finally stopped running and started fighting. 10 months earlier, Ethan Kwon had walked into the Blue Note at 2 a.m. with blood on his cufflinks and a migraine splitting his skull in half. The jazz club was nearly empty, just the way he liked it. The house band had packed up hours ago, leaving behind the ghost of a saxophone solo and the smell of bourbon-soaked wood. His bodyguards took their positions by the door, while Ethan slid into his usual corner booth, the one with a clear view of every exit. In his world, sitting with your back to a door was a death sentence. He was halfway through planning his next move against the Kim syndicate when she appeared. "You're in my section," she said, not bothering with the usual terrified deference his reputation commanded. She stood there with one hand on her hip, the other balancing a tray like a weapon. Her name tag read Tammy in fading Sharpie. Ethan looked up, ready to deliver the kind of cold stare that made grown men remember urgent appointments elsewhere. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she met his eyes without flinching, or the small scar above her eyebrow that suggested she'd survived her own share of violence. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe he was just tired of people treating him like a monster. "Coffee," he said, black. "At 2 in the morning?" She raised an eyebrow. "You got a death wish or just bad insomnia?" One of his guards shifted forward, but Ethan raised a hand to stop him. "Both, probably." The corner of her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. "Fair enough. One suicide by caffeine coming up." When she returned with the coffee, she set it down without the trembling hands he'd grown accustomed to. She didn't stare at the tattoos crawling up his neck, didn't glance nervously at his guards, didn't ask questions she didn't want answered. "You work late?" Ethan observed. "You don't sleep," she countered. Guess we both have our reasons." He found himself studying her, the way she moved with efficient grace between tables, the small notebook she kept in her apron where she'd scribbled what looked like poetry between order tickets, the defiant tilt of her chin that said she'd been underestimated before and learned to weaponize it. "What's a place like this still open at this hour?" he asked when she swung by to refill his cup. "Owner's got insomnia too. Plus, broken people need somewhere to go at 3 a.m. Might as well be here." She paused, then added with deliberate weight, "No judgment, no questions, just coffee and music." Something in Ethan's chest cracked open. When was the last time someone had offered him sanctuary instead of fear? "You always this philosophical with customers?" "Only the ones who look like they're one bad decision away from burning the world down." She set down a slice of apple pie he hadn't ordered. "On the house. You look like you could use something sweet." Ethan stared at the pie, then at her. For the first time in years, he laughed, a real laugh, rusty and surprised. "What's your name?" "You already read my name tag. Your full name." She hesitated, and he saw her making the same calculation he'd made 1,000 times. How much truth to give, how much to hide. Finally, she said, "Tammy T. Burris. The T's for Teresa, but don't ever call me that." "Ethan," he offered. "Just Ethan." She smiled then, genuine and unguarded. "Nice to meet you, just Ethan." He should have walked away, should have finished his coffee, left a $100 bill on the table and never come back. But when she turned to clear another table, he found himself asking, "You work tomorrow night?" Tammy looked back over her shoulder, something dangerous and hopeful flickering in her eyes. "Work? Every night, 2 to 6. Why?" "Just wondering if the coffee's always this good. Guess you'll have to come back and find out." She walked away, and Ethan watched her go, already knowing he was about to make the kind of mistake that got people killed, the kind that started with coffee at 2 a.m. and ended with a woman's name carved into the softest part of your heart.
Ethan came back the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that. What started as coffee at 2 a.m. became breakfast at sunrise in her cramped studio apartment, sunlight streaming through broken blinds, while she made scrambled eggs in an oversized t-shirt and he sat at her kitchen table pretending he knew what normal felt like. He'd never told anyone where he disappeared to in those stolen hours between darkness and dawn. His brother thought he was meeting informants. His lieutenants assumed he had a gambling problem. Nobody imagined their boss was learning to be human again, one domestic moment at a time. Tammy taught him things he'd forgotten existed: how to laugh at bad movies, how to dance badly in a kitchen to music from a phone speaker, how to fall asleep without checking if his gun was in reach. She'd curl against his chest in her twin bed, her fingers tracing the dragons and demons inked across his skin. And for those few hours, Ethan Kwon wasn't a syndicate boss. He was just a man who'd found something worth protecting. But secrets had a way of bleeding through. She never asked about the phone calls he'd take in her bathroom, speaking rapid Korean in clipped, lethal tones. She didn't comment on the nights he'd show up with fresh bruises blooming across his ribs, or the way his bodyguards always idled in the alley below her window. When she found the gun tucked in his jacket pocket one morning, she simply set it on the nightstand and brought him coffee. Black, no questions. "Tammy," he'd started, reaching for an explanation he couldn't give. "I'm not stupid, Ethan," she'd said quietly, sitting on the edge of the bed. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. "I've seen the way people look at you, the way they move when you walk into a room. I know you're not a banker or a businessman or whatever lie you were planning to tell me." His jaw clenched. This was the moment she'd run, the moment she'd see him for what he really was and realize she'd been sleeping next to a monster. But Tammy didn't run. She leaned forward, her forehead resting against his. "I also know the way you hold me when you think I'm sleeping, like I'm the only good thing you've ever touched,
like you're terrified I'm going to disappear." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Whatever you do out there, whoever you are when you leave this apartment, I don't care. In here, you're just Ethan, and that's enough." Something broke in him then. He pulled her close, buried his face in her neck, and for the first time since he was a child, Ethan Kwon let himself cry. Not the silent, swallowed grief he'd carried for years, but real tears, messy and human and free. "I don't deserve you," he breathed against her skin. "Probably not," she agreed, her hands gentle in his hair. "But you have me anyway." They stayed like that for hours, wrapped in each other, and the dangerous promise they were both making, that love could survive in the margins of violence, that tenderness could grow in soil soaked with blood, that two broken people could build something whole.
Ethan knew it was a lie. He knew his world would find her eventually, that keeping her was as selfish as it was inevitable. But for 3 months, he let himself believe it anyway. For 3 months, he built a life in the spaces between his wars. For 3 months, he was happy. And that's exactly when everything began to fall apart. The manila envelope landed on Ethan's desk with a sound like a gunshot. He'd been in his office going over territory maps when his second-in-command, Jin, placed it in front of him without a word. The look on Jin's face told Ethan everything he needed to know. This was bad. The kind of bad that ended with funerals and revenge killings and blood that wouldn't wash out of concrete. Ethan opened it. The first photograph showed Tammy leaving the blue note at dawn, her hair loose around her shoulders, wearing his jacket. The second caught her unlocking her apartment door, laughing at something off camera. The third was taken through her bedroom window, Ethan's own sleeping form visible in her bed, vulnerable and exposed in a way that made his blood run cold. At the bottom of the pile was a note, handwritten in elegant Korean script. "Weaknesses get people killed, Kwon. Sleep well." It was signed with Daehyun Kim's personal seal. How long has he known? Ethan's voice came out flat, dead, even as his hands trembled with rage. "At least 2 weeks, Jin said quietly. "Maybe longer. He's been watching, waiting. Ethan, you need to get out." Ethan's fist slammed into the desk, splitting the wood. "Get out." Jin left without another word. He'd seen his boss like this before, the moment when Ethan Kwon the man disappeared and only the monster remained. Ethan spread the photographs across his desk like crime scene evidence. In every single one, Tammy was smiling, radiant, alive. And now she had a target painted on her back in blood-red ink, all because he'd been selfish enough to think he could have something good without it rotting in his hands. He thought of his father's words, spoken years ago in a warehouse filled with bodies. "Love is a luxury men like us can't afford. It's a knife your enemies will use to gut you." Daehyun didn't need to say the threat out loud. Ethan understood the language of violence fluently. The message was clear: end this, or I will, and I won't make it quick. His phone buzzed, a text from Tammy. "Coming over after my shift, made your favorite, miss you." The words felt like shrapnel in his chest. He stared at them until they blurred, until he couldn't tell if the wetness on his face was sweat or something more damning. She'd made him soft, made him forget that everything he touched turned to ash, made him believe, stupidly, impossibly, that a man drenched in blood could hold something pure without it staining it. But Daehyun had reminded him of the truth. Ethan picked up his phone and typed with mechanical precision. "Don't come. Need space. Will explain later." Then he called Jin back in. "I need everything on Kim's operation. Every warehouse, every route, every weakness. I'm going to burn his empire to the ground." "And the girl?" Jin asked carefully. Ethan's jaw clenched so hard he tasted copper. "The girl was a mistake. I'm fixing it." He spent the next 3 hours planning. Not a war. Wars he could win. This was something harder. Something that required him to destroy the only thing in his life worth saving.
Because if he didn't, Dae-yoon would. And Dae-yoon wouldn't just kill her, he'd make it slow. He'd make Ethan watch. He'd turn Tammy's love into a weapon and drive it straight through both their hearts. No, better to break her himself. Better to make her hate him, make her run so far she'd never look back. Better to be the villain in her story, if it meant she got to have a story at all. By the time his phone rang again, her name lighting up the screen with pictures of them together, smiling like people who believed in happy endings, Ethan had already made his choice. He let it ring, and ring, and ring. Then he poured himself 3 fingers of whiskey, drank it like medicine, and began rehearsing the cruelest lie he'd ever have to tell. The apartment key felt like a weapon in Ethan's hand when he let himself in at 4 a.m. Tammy was curled on the couch in his shirt, asleep with her phone clutched to her chest. 17 missed calls, all from him. The sight nearly broke his resolve. She looked so small, so trusting, even in sleep, like she still believed he was someone worth waiting for. He forced himself to remember the photographs, Dae-yoon's elegant handwriting, the promise of violence that hung over her like a blade. "Tammy?" His voice came out wrong, too flat, too cold. "Wake up." She stirred, confusion giving way to relief when she saw him. That smile, God, that smile that lit up every dark corner of his world. "Ethan, I was so worried." "We need to talk." He stayed by the door, keeping distance between them like a barrier. If he got too close, if she touched him, he'd crumble. The relief in her eyes flickered. "Okay, what's wrong?" This was it, the point of no return. Ethan reached deep inside himself, past the man who loved her, down to the cold machinery that had kept him alive in a world built on betrayal. He found the monster his father had trained him to be and let it speak. "This isn't working." Each word was a bullet. "I thought I could do this, the domestic thing, the normal girlfriend thing, but I was wrong." Tammy sat up slowly, pulling his shirt tighter around herself like armor. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm bored." The lie tasted like acid. It was fun at first, playing house with you, but that's all it was, playing. "You don't mean that!" Her voice cracked, and he hated himself for noticing. "Ethan, 2 days ago you told me—" "I lied." He forced himself to look at her, to watch her break. It was the only way she'd believe him. "You're not complicated enough to hold my interest. This whole thing, it was just a distraction, something to fill empty hours between real life."
She stood up, tears already streaming down her face. "Stop it. I know you. This isn't you." "You don't know anything about me." His voice turned sharp, cutting. "You're a waitress who served me coffee. I fucked you because you were convenient and available. That's it. There's no grand love story here, Tammy. There's just a man who got bored with his entertainment." The sound she made, half gasp, half sob, would haunt him forever. "Get out!" Her voice shook with rage and devastation. "Get out of my apartment! Get out of my life!" Ethan turned toward the door, his hand on the knob. He should leave. He should run before she saw through the performance. But some masochistic part of him needed to make sure it stuck, needed to burn every bridge so thoroughly she'd never try to cross back. "One more thing," he said without looking back. "Delete my number. Forget you ever knew me. You're not safe if you don't." "I already hate you," she whispered. "Is that enough?" "Yes." The word came out broken. "That's enough." He closed the door on her crying and didn't let himself break until he was in his car, forehead pressed against the steering wheel, his own sobs tearing through him like shrapnel. He'd saved her life, and it had cost him the only thing that made living worth it. The pregnancy test clattered into Tammy's bathroom sink, 2 pink lines staring back at her like an accusation. 2 weeks,
It had been 2 weeks since Ethan had walked out of her apartment and her life, leaving nothing behind but his shirt and the wreckage of her heart. 2 weeks of crying herself to sleep, of forcing herself to go to work, of telling herself she was better off without him. 2 weeks of lying. Now this. Her hand moved to her stomach, flat and unchanged, harboring a secret that felt like both miracle and curse. A piece of Ethan growing inside her, tangible proof that whatever he'd said, whatever lies he'd told to push her away, what they'd had was real. She'd felt it in the way he'd held her, the way he'd whispered her name in the dark like a prayer. But he'd left, called her boring, convenient, entertainment, and now she was pregnant and alone and terrified. The knock on her apartment door came 3 days later. Tammy opened it to find a man in an expensive suit, flanked by 2 others who radiated the same dangerous energy Ethan's bodyguards had. But this man was different, older, polished, with a smile that made her skin crawl. "Miss Burris," he said in accented English, his Korean origin evident. "My name is Dae-hyun Kim. May I come in?" Every instinct screamed danger, but something in his eyes told her refusing wasn't an option. She stepped aside. He settled onto her couch like he owned it, studying her with the calculating gaze of a predator measuring prey. "You're pregnant," he said, not a question. Tammy's blood turned to ice. "I don't know what you're—"
Please, he held up a hand. I've had people watching you for months. I know about the morning sickness, the test you bought at CVS yesterday at 2 a.m., the prenatal vitamins you just picked up. I know everything about you, Miss Burris, including who the father is." The room tilted. "What do you want?" Dae-hyun's smile widened. "Dae-hyun Kwon destroyed something of mine recently, burned 3 of my warehouses, killed a dozen of my men, cost me millions. He did this because he thought he was protecting you." He leaned forward. "He thought if he pushed you away, made you hate him, I'd leave you alone. Noble, really. Stupid, but noble." Tammy's heart hammered against her ribs. "If you're here to kill me, kill you. No." His tone turned businesslike. "I'm here to offer you a deal. Marry me, and I won't kill him." The words didn't make sense, couldn't make sense. "What?" "I could end Ethan Kwon tomorrow. 1 bullet, very simple. But where's the poetry in that?" Dae-hyun stood, pacing her tiny apartment. "No, I want him to suffer the way he made me suffer. I want him to watch the woman he loves, carrying his child, belong to me. I want him to live with that every single day, knowing he gave you up for nothing." "You're insane!" The words tumbled out before she could stop them. "I'm practical." He turned to face her. "You have 24 hours to decide. Marry me, play the role of devoted wife, raise your daughter in comfort and safety while Ethan lives, or refuse, and I'll make sure his body is delivered to you in pieces." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Miss Burris, I know you think you're protecting him by staying away. You're not. The only thing keeping him alive right now is my curiosity about your answer." The door clicked shut behind him. Tammy collapsed onto the couch, her hand pressed against her stomach, where their daughter, a daughter he'd said, was growing. She thought of Ethan's face in the doorway, the way his voice had cracked on that final yes, the way he'd told her to delete his number, to forget him, that she wasn't safe. He'd broken her heart to save her life. Now she'd have to break his to return the favor. The wedding invitation arrived in a black envelope, hand-delivered to Ethan's penthouse by a courier who disappeared before the bodyguards could grab him. Ethan stared at it for a full minute before opening it, whiskey glass frozen halfway to his lips. He knew that seal, Dae-hyun's personal mark pressed into blood-red wax. 6 months of silence, 6 months of brutal gang warfare, and now this. Inside, elegant calligraphy announced the union of Daehyun Kim and Tammy Theresa Burris at St. Jude's Cathedral, 2 p.m. Saturday. The honor of his presence was requested. The glass shattered against the wall. "Boss?" Jin appeared in the doorway, gun drawn. Ethan didn't answer. He was reading the handwritten note tucked behind the invitation, Daehyun's mocking scrawl. "Thought you'd want to see what you threw away. She's quite lovely in white. Your loss, my gain."
He's marrying her. The words came out strangled. He's marrying Tammy. Jin's face went pale. That's impossible. Our sources said she disappeared, went underground after you. After I destroyed her. Ethan crumpled the invitation in his fist. After I made her think she meant nothing, and somehow that bastard found her, probably offered her protection, security, everything I couldn't give her. His laugh was bitter, broken. Smart. Make me watch him take the only thing I ever loved, make me live with it. But something felt wrong. Daehyun didn't do mercy, didn't do love stories. The man collected power like other people collected art, and marrying a waitress with no connections made no strategic sense, unless it was about Ethan, unless this whole thing was an elaborate trap, a public execution dressed up as a wedding. Come to St. Jude's, watch your ex-lover marry your enemy, and leave in a body bag? Fine, let him try. Ethan stood, moving to his wall safe with mechanical precision. He pulled out his Glock, the one with custom grips, the one he'd used to build his empire. Checked the clip, loaded. He slipped it into his shoulder holster, then grabbed 2 backup magazines. "What are you doing?" Jin's voice carried a warning. "I'm going to a wedding." Ethan shrugged into his jacket, the weight of the gun a familiar comfort. Daehyun wants a show, I'll give him one, but it's gonna end with him bleeding out on the altar, not me. It's a trap, you know it's a trap. I don't care. And he didn't. 6 months of drowning himself in violence, trying to forget the way Tammy smiled, the sound of her laugh, the warmth of her body against his. 6 months of telling himself he'd done the right thing, saved her, let her go. And now Daehyun was flaunting her like a trophy, marrying her in a church like their love had been nothing but a footnote. If she chose him, fine, I'll let her go. Ethan's hand moved to his gun, but if he forced her, if he hurt her, if this is some sick power play, his voice dropped to something lethal. I'm turning that cathedral into a morgue. Jin recognized that tone, the one that meant his boss had stopped calculating odds and started writing obituaries. At least take backup. No. Ethan headed for the door. This is between me and him, always has been. Tammy was just collateral damage. The lie tasted familiar now, worn smooth by repetition. He climbed into his car, the invitation still clutched in his hand. 2 p.m. Saturday, St. Jude's Cathedral. He had 48 hours to decide if he was going to a wedding or a war. In the end, he knew it didn't matter. Either way, someone wasn't walking out alive. Ethan's footsteps echoed like gunshots against the marble floor. The priest's voice faltered mid-sentence, trailing off into shocked silence. 300 heads turned in perfect unison, a wave of movement that rippled through the pews. Ethan registered it all in his peripheral vision. Daehyun's guards reaching for weapons beneath their suit jackets, the wedding guests frozen in various states of horror and fascination, the massive stained glass windows casting bloody light across white roses. But none of it mattered, because Tammy had turned too.
Their eyes locked, and the world collapsed into that single point of contact. 6 months of distance evaporated. 6 months of lies, of breaking himself against the memory of her, of trying to convince himself he'd done the right thing, all of it shattered like glass. She looked different, thinner despite the swell of her pregnancy. Shadows bruised the skin under her eyes. Her hair was styled in elaborate curls that looked wrong on her, too formal, too controlled. This wasn't his Tammy who danced in kitchens and laughed at bad movies. This was a woman who'd learned to cage herself.
But it was her eyes that destroyed him. Not anger, not hatred, pure, devastating anguish that said she'd never stopped loving him, never stopped mourning what they'd lost, never believed the cruel words he'd used to drive her away. At the altar, Dae-hun's smile spread slowly across his face like poison. "Ethan Kwon, I wondered if you'd actually come." His voice carried through the cathedral, amplified by stone and silence. "Though I have to say, interrupting a wedding seems dramatic, even for you." Ethan kept walking, his hand resting casually near his jacket where the Glock waited. He counted guards, 8 visible, probably 4 more in the balcony, 2 at the rear exit. Terrible odds, suicide odds. He didn't care. "The bride," Ethan said, each word deliberate, "is wearing my jacket size in her closet. She takes her coffee black because that's how I taught her to drink it. She has a scar above her left eyebrow from a fight when she was 16. His eyes never left Tammy. "And judging by the way she's looking at me right now, she's not here because she wants to be." How presumptuous! Dae-hun's hand moved to Tammy's shoulder, possessive. She flinched, and Ethan's vision went red. Perhaps she simply moved on, found a man who could actually protect her instead of abandoning her when things got difficult. Tammy's face crumpled. A sob broke from her throat, raw and broken, and she pressed her hand against her mouth like she could force the sound back inside. Tears streamed down her face, destroying her carefully applied makeup, and Ethan saw it then, the truth written in every line of her body. This wasn't a wedding, it was a hostage situation. "Tammy," his voice came out softer now, meant only for her. "Look at me." She did, and in her eyes she read everything she couldn't say. "I'm sorry. I had no choice. He said he'd kill you. I did this for you, for us, for our daughter." Our daughter. The words hit him like a bullet. His gaze dropped to her pregnant belly, doing math that made his heart stop. 7 months. He'd left her 6 months ago, which meant, oh God, he breathed. Dae-hun's smile turned victorious. Surprise! Ethan closed the distance to the altar in 3 strides, ignoring the armed men converging from every corner of the cathedral. His world had narrowed to the woman in white, trembling like a candle flame about to go out.
"Is it mine?" His voice cracked on the question. "Tammy, is the baby mine?" Dae-hun stepped between them, still wearing that insufferable smile. "I think we're past the point of objections, Kwon. The ceremony was nearly—" "I'm not talking to you." Ethan's hand moved to his gun, finger resting on the grip. "I'm talking to her. Move." For a moment, violence hung in the air like humidity before a storm. Then Tammy's voice cut through it, barely above a whisper. "Yes." The single word detonated everything. "Yes, what?" Ethan pushed past Dae-hun, closing the space until he could see the gold flecks in her eyes, the ones he'd memorized in the dark. "Say it, please." The dam broke. Tears streamed down Tammy's face as words tumbled out in a desperate rush. "Yes, she's yours. I found out 2 weeks after you left. 2 weeks after you told me I was boring and convenient and meant nothing." Her voice rose, 6 months of anguish pouring out. "I was alone and terrified and pregnant, and then he showed up." She gestured at Dae-hun with something close to hatred. "He knew everything about us, about the baby, about what you'd done to his warehouses. He said if I didn't marry him, he'd kill you. Not quick either. He described it, Ethan, every detail of how he'd make you suffer, how he'd make sure I watched." Her hand moved protectively to her stomach. "So I said yes, because you broke my heart to save my life, and I had to break yours to return the favor, because our daughter deserves a father, even if he thinks I was just entertainment." I lied. The confession ripped out of him. Every word was a lie. You were never boring, never convenient, never nothing. You were everything, and that's exactly why I had to make you hate me. He turned to Dae-hyun, voice dropping to something lethal. He sent me photographs. You leaving work, you at home, you through your bedroom window. The message was clear. End it or he'd end you. Understanding bloomed in Tammy's eyes, followed by fresh devastation. We were both trying to save each other. How touching, Dae-hyun said, his smile finally fading. A tragedy of noble intentions, but I'm afraid the story ends with you dead, Kwon, and Tammy learning to love her new life. He raised his hand, a casual gesture that meant death. Guards moved from every direction, guns appearing from beneath expensive suits. The priest scrambled backward, wedding guests screamed and dove behind pews. Ethan counted 8 weapons trained on him, maybe 9. Impossible odds. He didn't care. His gun cleared the holster in one smooth motion, aimed not at the guards, but directly at Dae-hyun's heart. You want me dead? Fine, but I'm taking you with me. And then Tammy walks out of here with our daughter, free from both of us. Ethan, no! Tammy grabbed his arm. Dae-hyun laughed, the sound echoing through the cathedral. You'd die for her after everything? How predictable. Every time, without hesitation, Dae-hyun's hand dropped, the signal given. The world exploded into gunfire.
The cathedral windows shattered inward in a symphony of breaking glass. Ethan moved on instinct, throwing himself over Tammy and driving them both behind the altar as bullets chewed through the air where they'd been standing. The priest went down, not shot, just terrified and sensible enough to play dead. Marble exploded into dust around them. Screams ricocheted off stone walls. Stay down! Ethan covered Tammy's body with his own, one arm wrapped around her head, the other returning fire at Dae-hyun's guards. 3 shots, 3 bodies dropping. Years of violence had made him efficient. Then the front doors exploded off their hinges. Jin came through first, followed by 20 of Ethan's best men in tactical gear, weapons raised. Not a rescue, an invasion. Ethan hadn't called them, but Jin had never been good at following orders when his boss was walking into suicide missions. Get her out! Ethan shouted over the gunfire, already pulling Tammy to her feet. Her wedding dress was torn, smeared with dust and his blood from where a bullet had grazed his shoulder. She looked up at him with wild eyes, one hand clutching her belly protectively. I'm not leaving you! You are! He shoved her toward Jin, who caught her with surprising gentleness. Get her to the south exit, armored cars waiting 2 blocks down. More of Dae-hyun's men poured in from the balcony, automatic weapons spitting fire. The cathedral had become a war zone, pews splintering under the assault, bodies falling on both sides. Ethan caught a glimpse of Dae-hyun retreating through a side door, the coward running while his men died. Not today. Ethan moved like smoke through the chaos, taking out guards with brutal precision. A shot to the knee, then the chest, weapon seized, turned on its owner. He was a monster in expensive clothes, doing what monsters do best, surviving. Boss, we need to go! Jin was at the side exit with Tammy, laying down cover fire. But Ethan had seen something that made his blood freeze. A guard on the balcony, rifle trained not on him, but on Tammy's retreating form, finger on the trigger, about to fire. Time crystallized. Ethan's body made the decision before his mind caught up. He threw himself into the bullet's path, felt the impact punch through his chest like a fist, hot and catastrophic. The cathedral tilted. His knees hit marble that felt like clouds. Ethan! Tammy's scream cut through everything. Gunfire, chaos, his own heartbeat struggling in his ears. Then Jin was there, hauling him up with one arm while still shooting with the other. Tammy appeared on his other side, pregnant and impossible, helping drag him toward the exit, even as his legs failed. Her face was wet with tears and fury. "Don't you dare die on me," she sobbed. "Not after this, not after everything." They burst into sunlight. The armored car screeched up, doors already open, bodies piled inside, Ethan on the floor, bleeding, Tammy beside him, pressing her hands against his chest, Jin yelling coordinates to the driver. Tyre screamed. The cathedral receded behind them. Ethan stared up at Tammy, at her face framed by broken sky through the window, and thought, worth it. Every second, every lie, every night of hell, worth it to see her safe. "Stay with me," she begged, her hands slick with his blood. "Please, Ethan, our daughter needs to meet her father." He tried to answer, but darkness was rising like a tide, pulling him under. Ethan woke to filtered sunlight and the steady beep of a heart monitor. The safe house was somewhere outside the city, Jin's doing, probably. Cream-colored walls, reinforced windows, medical equipment that belonged in a hospital. His chest was wrapped in bandages, pain radiating with every breath, but he was alive. Against all odds and probability, he was alive. And Tammy was asleep in the chair beside his bed, still wearing the ruined wedding dress, one hand resting on her belly. He watched her for a long moment, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the way her chest rose and fell. 6 months of hell, and somehow they'd found their way back to each other through fire and bullets and desperate choices made out of love. She stirred, eyes opening slowly. When she saw him awake, relief flooded her face. "You're okay." Relatively speaking, his voice came out rough. He reached for her hand, and she gave it without hesitation, their fingers intertwining like they'd never been apart. "Tammy, I'm sorry for everything, for lying, for breaking your heart, for not being there when you needed me. You were trying to save me." She squeezed his hand. "I understand that now. But Ethan," her voice turned fierce, "no more secrets, no more noble sacrifices. If we're doing this, raising our daughter together, we do it as partners. You don't get to decide what's best for me without telling me." "No more secrets," he promised. "I swear it." She guided his hand to her belly, and he felt it, a flutter of movement, tiny and insistent. Their daughter, real and alive, growing despite the chaos surrounding them. "Can I?" He hesitated, suddenly uncertain. "Can I talk to her?" Tammy's smile was answer enough. Ethan shifted carefully, pain flaring but manageable, and leaned down to press his lips against the swell of her stomach. "Hey, little one, it's your dad. Sorry I'm late. I'm gonna mess up a lot. I'm gonna be scared and overprotective and probably do everything wrong, but I'm going to love you. God, I'm going to love you so much." Tammy's hand found his hair, gentle and grounding. She already knows. 3 months later, in a private hospital room with Jin standing guard outside, their daughter came into the world, screaming defiance at 3:47 a.m. Ethan held her for the first time with shaking hands, terrified he'd break something so impossibly small. She was perfect, dark hair, Tammy's nose, eyes that would probably change color, but currently stared at him with unfocused wonder. Her tiny hand wrapped around his tattooed finger, soft skin against the dragons and demons inked into his knuckles. The contrast was stark. All his violence, all his sins, held by something pure and new and entirely dependent on him not to fuck this up. "Hello, Grace," he whispered, using the name they'd chosen together. "I'm your dad, and I promise you," he looked up at Tammy, exhausted and radiant in the hospital bed. "I promise both of you, I'm done running." Tammy smiled through happy tears. "We know." Outside, dawn broke over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. And for the first time in his violent life, Ethan Kwon believed in second chances.